Percentages, home reaction. This is how the US and Iran became arch enemies. But channel Real Life Lore. It's a Real Life Lore video. He says he posted this 4 years ago on Nebula. I mean, when it comes to like global relationship like this, 4 years is nothing. I mean, he's not going to talk about recent conflict, but then again, this is a history video, so it doesn't have to have anything to do with the recent conflict. It's just like going to show like how US and Iran, which I remember were great allies, or has to be, because Iran has US equipment, F-14 and things like that. So they must have been great allies and things. And then it became like complete 180 with the Islamic Republic coming into power, Ayatollah and everyone. So it became like completely opposite, I'm guessing. Maybe Soviet Union and Cold War had something to do with it, like intensified shit. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to watch. So let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which I videos react to more. I like watching history videos, obviously. I like watching real life lore videos. Yeah, usually real life lore videos is too big, like an hour long or something. This is fortunately only less than half an hour. So yeah, but usually it's like hour plus or hour around videos. So reaction would be like 1.5 to 2 hour long. People usually don't watch that long. Watch time suffers. So I usually don't react to things like that. I try to do it in part if I can, but yeah. So yeah, I'm glad Real Life Lore made a video about this, or made a video about this 4 years ago. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Let's wait, because there's not many big creators yet made a video about this, right? Like I'm waiting for Sandbox to make a video about like recent strike, literally just happened a day, like less than 24 hours ago. So that's gonna be interesting. So let's watch it.
The United States and Iran have one of the world's most complicated and controversial relationships. The United States is the world's most preeminent superpower with a population of more than 320 million, while Iran is a major power in her own right, with a population of more than 80 million. These countries represent 4% and 1% of the living human population. And for the past 41 years, they've had absolutely zero diplomatic.
80 million? My house has more people than that. All right. So yeah, in the context of India and like China, 80 million is basically nothing. But yeah, in Middle East, I can see like with the landmass and everything. Yeah, Iran is a major player, or at least like a certain way important player that matters in that geography.
Relations, and have come close to the brink of total war on more than one occasion. At the beginning of 2020, war between the two sides seemed almost inevitable.
Ooh.
The United States assassinated an Iranian major general in a drone strike, and Iran retaliated by initiating artillery strikes against American military bases across Iraq. Had a war broken out from there, it had the potential to become the biggest conflict in human history since the Second World War. This time, that fate was thankfully avoided. But in order to understand how it got so close and why it could still happen during another crisis in the future, you've got to understand the entire history of the conflict between America and Iran so far. And that story begins back before the start of World War II. At the beginning of the 20th century, oil was first discovered within the deserts of Iran by the British. As more and more of these discoveries were made, it was revealed that Iran in fact contained the fourth largest proven reserves of oil anywhere on the planet, and that the country was an undiscovered and unrealized energy superpower. The only problem for the British, of course, was that these discoveries were located within Iran, and Iran wasn't within Britain's vast colonial empire that already spanned a quarter of the globe. Not too worried about that pesky little detail, Britain negotiated a deal with Iran to share in the massive profits that were bound to.
I'm surprised they didn't just walk over there from Afghanistan, Iraq. Like, Iran is there, they have oil, we are here. How about we go over there? I'm surprised they didn't do that shit and just like try to take over the place. I guess they discovered it late enough so they can't do it. I don't know. So shit like that.
Come from the extraction of all this oil. They created the jointly owned Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, but it wasn't exactly set up very fairly. Iran, the country where all of this oil was actually located, was only entitled to 16% of the company's profits, whereas the other 84%.
Only 16%. Yeah, okay, it's whole 16. Yeah, this type of shit, like anyone, like before you even read the next sentence, you're like, yeah, this shit is probably coming. Of course, they just gave them 16%, but that's how British roll.
Of profits were going directly to the British. By the start of the Second World War, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company grew to control all of Iran's oil and had grown to become the largest company in the entire British Empire. But this massively valuable asset was coming under threats. Discontent at the company's unfair terms was growing within Iran itself, while at the same time in 1941, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union and opened up the largest military front line ever seen in human history. Iran stood geographically at the Soviet Union's southern flank, and their intentions were considered suspect by both the British and the Soviets. Despite having declared neutrality at the onset of the war, Iran's ruling Shah, or emperor, was widely considered by the Allies to be too friendly towards the Nazis. If Iran were to have cooperated with the Axis, it could have opened up another southern front for the Soviets to deal with that would have diverted vital troops away from the critical Eastern Front. It could have jeopardized the Soviet Union's own oil fields in the Caucasus right on.
Well, wait a minute. So, Iran wasn't as Islamically religious as they are right now then? Because otherwise, how would it work with the Nazis? Like, Nazis wouldn't like that religious element there, right? So I don't know. I'm guessing they weren't as religious as they are right now, or at least the government wasn't as religious as they are right now, because that's the only thing that makes sense.
On Iran's doorstep, and it would have potentially placed Britain's largest oil company in the hands of the Nazis. So in order to prevent any of that from happening, and in order to ensure that Iran could be used as a transportation corridor to get vital supplies into the Soviet Union, neutral Iran was invaded by both the Soviets and the British. Vastly outnumbered and far behind in technology, Iran never stood a chance and surrendered within just a week. The old, troublesome Shah was overthrown and replaced by the invaders with his much younger 21-year-old son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, whom the Allies felt would be far less capable of acting against their interests. Iran was effectively occupied for the entire Second World War by the Allies, which eventually saw the deployment of more than 30,000 Americans and the transportation of nearly 1/3 of all the supplies that America sent to the Soviet Union.
I like how American president just sitting there with Stalin all the times. Right? This is the type of, somebody should make a video like out of context clips and just show that just collect it in a way that just shows it completely out of context. And there you go. Stalin just sitting there, chilling there.
Union. After the war ended, the Allies left and ended their occupation, but the unfair terms that the British had established in regards to Iran's oil came back into question. By the early 1950s, Britain was still taking home the majority of Iran's oil profits, while the conditions for Iranian oil workers and their families remained terrible. At the same time, the British were also withholding all of the company's financial records from the Iranians, and had refused all of their requests at being audited. The support for nationalizing the company within Iran was getting overwhelmingly massive, and by 1951, Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, with unanimous approval from the Iranian parliament, finally did so. Britain responded to this by immediately embargoing all Iranian oil, and then 2 years later, in 1953, Britain's MI6 and America's CIA organized a military coup within the country to overthrow Mossadegh's government. As many as 300 Iranians were killed during the coup. Mossadegh himself was placed under house arrest for the rest of his life.
Yeah, just because they wanted a fair price for oil, basically. That's what this shit is. Yeah. Go back few decades and roles are flipped a lot. Like, morally, you can't really argue with the West in a lot of these cases. Like, yeah, it's for the oil. What are you going to do? It's Iranians' oil. Shouldn't we give them more money? No, 16% is fine.
While the Shah was elevated to being essentially an authoritarian dictator within the country. Having had his position installed and guaranteed by Western powers twice now, the Shah became widely viewed in Iran as little more than a Western puppet. And as the Cold War developed out of the ashes of the Second World War, Iran's strategic location at the Soviet Union's southern flank, her vast strategic reserves of oil, and her authoritarian leader who owed his position and loyalty to the West, made Iran a natural and valuable ally of the United States for the very first time. The Shah pursued a staunchly pro-American and pro-Israel foreign policy, and for decades, Iran became one of America's most important Cold War era allies.
Could you imagine that shit? Iran pro-Israel. Just saying that feels weird, isn't it? But yeah, there was a time like that.
But over the decades, the Shah's policies and cozy relations with the West alienated much of his home base support. He ran a vast network of secret police within the country who arrested thousands of political opponents, and many more, like Ayatollah Khomeini, were exiled. Widespread torture of political
Is
dissidents
that the same guy that is now?
in prison was reported. He outlawed the Iranian Communist Party. He continued friendly relations with both America and Israel, despite nearly none of the rest of the Islamic world even recognizing Israel, while he carried out a domestic policy of modernization, secularism, and the enfranchisement of women. All of these policies combined alienated Iran's leftists, the working class, and the hardcore Shiite Muslim conservatives and clergy. And by the late 1970s, Iran's long-standing political unrest had transformed into full-scale revolution. A movie theater was set on fire in Abadan that killed at least 420 people, with the Shah's regime blaming Marxist and Islamist insurgents, while many of the protesters felt like it was more likely the Shah's own secret police. The following month, protesters gathered in the capital Tehran's main square, and the Shah's army opened fire on them indiscriminately, killing and wounding hundreds more. More than 5 million.
Yeah, and that Shah's Prince of Persia just recently is from America, I'm guessing. He's posting up videos like how he's gonna come back. After all this shit, are people gonna fall for that? I mean, come on, like you can't really blame people if they're like, nah, we'll do anything but you. I mean, yes, dictatorship, like like monarchy level shit. Yeah, that always revert to shit like this. It's never good, right? So yeah.
Million Iranians took to the streets demanding the Shah's abdication, and after defections from his army became rampant, Mohammad Pahlavi realized that his position was impossible to maintain, and he fled the country in exile in early 1979. The new radical Shiite Islamist government that replaced the Shah's regime immediately abolished the monarchy and invited Ayatollah Khomeini back to the country after 15 years of exile to become Iran's new supreme leader. And the modern Islamic Republic of Iran was born. And this new Iranian regime was radically different from the one that.
So let me get this straight. British found oil. British basically gave only 16% to Iranian, for which is their own shit. I get it, British came up with the technology and all that, but it's Iranian shit. It's like somebody coming to your house, taking your furniture and everything you have, make something clever from it and just taking it away and giving only 16% back. It's your house, your shit. I mean, come on. So all that shit happened when they actually asked for something better, embargoes and shit, right? And then Western countries meddled into that shit, like like CIA and everyone, British MI6 and everyone, overthrew the government, play God when it comes to government. Shah came into power, pro-Western, did some Tiananmen Square level shit. And then the current regime that is on power came to power. That's how they came to power. Yeah. It's always shit like this, isn't it? Like it's trend everywhere. Doesn't matter which country you go to. Doesn't matter where you go to. It's always some shady shit some Western countries did like that, and we are here now.
That it preceded. It was a totalitarian Shiite theocracy that was staunchly opposed to the United States and Israel, and mass executions and purges of political opponents and members of the former regime were almost immediately carried out. To the United States and the rest of the world, Iran's Islamic Revolution came as an enormous shock. Almost overnight, Iran had flipped from being one of America's most important Middle Eastern allies to her greatest Middle Eastern enemy. After the Shah was over.
So yeah, Western America and Britain constantly meddled into their shit with their CIA and like MI6, overthrew government by meddling. And when people actually caught on and realized that we are getting played and actually it became this new regime, West is like Pikachu face. Is that what it is? And yeah, obviously, like they're going to do extreme shit of their own. The new regime going to kill, what is it, like thousands of political people that they killed or something, as people tell me. Yeah, that shit is going to intensify now.
Overthrown, the United States welcomed him into their country for a cancer treatment operation, and the new Iran demanded that he be extradited back to stand trial for the crimes that he had committed throughout his reign against the Iranian people. Knowing that his return would mean a certain execution.
Trial. He's gonna stand trial.
The United States rejected all of Iran's demands, but that did little to dissuade Iran's revolutionary paranoia. Since the Shah was actively inside America, and since Western powers had already initiated 2 previous coups in the past to install him.
I mean, it is not a question. It is what US and CIA was thinking. There will be one day where we'll use Shah to overthrow government again. We're going to meddle again. See, this is the thing. This is the dilemma I usually have when it comes to global stage. Yes, you have one side that is like constantly like just killing political people, and like Iran's Islamic government doing all this fucked up shit. You have other side who paved way for them to come here by meddling into government and doing constant like this CIA shit that we've been watching in movies for years now, and keeps the Shah there. I mean, obviously, like there is an element there. No way CIA didn't thought of like one day we're gonna overthrow Iranian government and install this Shah there. As far as we have Shah in our hand, we always have a card with us. Of course, CIA thought of that. So Western countries also do shady shit like that. It's like both sides are dirty. But we have to figure out who's more dirty, and at this current time, who's it more wrong? Obviously, it's Iran with a nuclear weapon and trying to bomb everyone, right? But this shit wouldn't have intensified as much if West tried to play it fairly. It didn't just point blank overthrow governments by staging coups.
Over the will of the Iranian people, the paranoia was widespread that America and the CIA could be plotting yet another 3rd coup attempt from within their embassy inside Tehran. And so, in November of 1979, thousands of Iranian revolutionaries and students stormed the American embassy and took 52 American diplomats and civilians as hostages. America eventually sent the Shah away to Egypt, while the Carter administration worked for months to secure the hostages' release. But when diplomacy went nowhere, Carter authorized a raid by the United States Army Rangers in April of 1980 to attempt a rescue operation. But the raid turned into a disaster. Codenamed Operation Eagle Claw, a helicopter crashed into a transport plane before any contact with the Iranians was even made, and 8 American soldiers lost their lives. Carter ordered the mission to be abandoned, and the hostages remained under Iranian control. It was at this point that the United States decided to sever all diplomatic relations with Iran's new regime, and they have been frozen ever since. But a few months later, something else incredible and unexpected happened. In September of 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq launched an all-out invasion of conquest into Iran. For years preceding this, Saddam had wanted Iraq to overtake and supplant Iran as the dominant power in the oil-rich Persian Gulf. But they were never capable of doing anything about it, because Iran had a colossally larger military, and they had the support of America and Israel.
Yeah.
All of which made her vastly more powerful. But after Iran was thrown into chaos by her revolution and regime change, with massive purges and executions of government officials, and after she was abandoned by both America and Israel and was left without any major foreign allies, Saddam calculated that now was better than ever to take advantage and attack. Iran
Imagine all this Saddam sitting in the background, calculating, this is my time now. Yeah.
expected a rapid victory, but the war that followed turned into an 8-year-long stalemate that most resembled the Western Front of World War I. After the massive...
I mean, Iran had American equipments, F-14 Tomcats and shit. I don't know what calculations Saddam made. The problem with dictators is that their own people are afraid of them and not going to give them accurate report. So usually shit like this always happen, even in World War II, even in Napoleon time. You can see a lot of like resemblance where dictators got wrong report from their own people because they're afraid to say the truth.
Iraqi invasion, Iran was forced to reevaluate the American hostage situation, and they agreed to release all 52 back into U.S. custody after holding them for 444 days.
Damn.
America levied heavy economic sanctions upon Iran as a consequence, and then began heavily supplying Saddam and Iraq in their war effort that they hoped would destabilize Iran even further. The Iran-Iraq War would ultimately prove to be one of the largest and the bloodiest of the 20th century's second half.
Hold up there. Oh my God. So you telling me this shit led to America equipping Iraq, which in turn, Iraq trying to fuck with Bush's father, the elder Bush, and the whole shit start about Bush and Bush rivalry. that turns into Iraq invasion. Everything somehow leads to one thing. Like many historical events somehow leads to one thing. It's like one fuck up. Butterfly effects are everywhere. This shit is insane. Imagine if like MI6 and CIA didn't fuck with them. British gave them the fair, oil prices. This company, they didn't try to do the coup and fuck with them and actually try to support them realistically so they can have proper democratic election. How different Iran would have been. They wouldn't have to fund the Iraq and fund Saddam Hussein. Maybe Iraq invasion wouldn't have happened, right? Desert storm and shit like that. Who the fuck knows?
With as many as 400,000 Iranians losing their lives across the front line, owing in part to the widespread deployment of chemical weapons and landmines from Iraq, who is being heavily supplied and supported with conventional weapons by the United States. Throughout the war, the US contends that Hezbollah, a Shia Islamist militia organization operating out of Lebanon who is a client of Iran, carried out multiple anti-American terror attacks across the region. In 1983, they carried out a bombing of the US embassy in Beirut, which killed 17 Americans, and later that same year, they carried out another massive truck bombing attack against the barracks of a military compound in Lebanon, which killed a further 241 American and 58 French soldiers. These events and others contributed to the United States placing Iran on their state sponsors of terrorism list the following year in 1984. By April of 1988, the Iran-Iraq War was still raging, and Iran had mined a large section of the Persian Gulf in order to counter the Iraqi Navy. An American frigate who happened to be passing through struck one of these mines and became severely damaged and almost sank, but with no loss of life. Regardless, America decided to initiate a retaliatory attack against Iranian targets and initiated Operation Praying Mantis. It was the largest U.S. naval combat operation seen since the Second World War. And it saw
no, I know that. Touch our boats, we're gonna destroy half of our Navy shit. Yeah.
2 American surface groups launching coordinated strikes that blew up 2 Iranian offshore oil platforms and sank 6 of their warships. The attack destroyed or severely damaged half of Iran's entire fleet and killed 56 Iranians, while resulting in only 2 American deaths. Just 3 months later, in July of 1988, an American cruiser strayed into Iranian territorial waters and received warning shots fired from Iranian speedboats. At the same time, Iran Air Flight 655 that was taking its normal flight route above from Tehran to Dubai and was at this point flying over Iran's territorial waters above the Strait of Hormuz. The American cruiser misidentified this commercial aircraft as an Iranian fighter jet and, assuming that they could have been under attack, they launched a missile that targeted and then completely destroyed the whole plane. There were 290 people on board that flight, and 250.
That is the most fucked up thing yet. Just by the scale, because it's done by a US military ship who mistook that for a jet. I mean, fuck up happens, but how it happened, from whom it happened, yeah, that's the most biggest fuck up you can think of in this story yet. Thinking of a military plane actually taking down a passenger plane done by a proper American Navy ship. Oh, that's some next level shit, man. Right? This is people walking around and stumbling into shit and falling everything, destroying everything. This is a China shop type of thing, right? Walking inside, just hitting everything and destroying every shit. That's what this story is. Both sides cannot stop fucking up things, whether by mistake or whatever. This is a relationship that was always messy from the start. It's this shit is just everybody just making bad decisions left and right.
4 of them were Iranians. None of them survived the missile strike, and it was the deadliest aviation shoot-down incident in history until the horrible shoot-down of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 over Ukraine by pro-Russian rebels more than a quarter century later. These deadly events between both sides sharply escalated tensions between America and Iran, and each felt that the other had done grievous harm towards them. In 1995, the Clinton administration enacted a total embargo.
I mean, look, man, at this point, America should have been you can't act like someone you're trying to fight. You need to be better. They should have come out and just, I don't know if they did or not, at least RealLifeLore is not stating here, but they should have come out and just say oh, this is a major fuck up from us. this is our fault. We should have known better. Like, we just shoot down a civilian plane with civilians on board, like 3-digit civilians on board.
Embargo on all dealings with Iran by any American-based company, which effectively killed all trade between both countries. In 1996, the Iranian client Hezbollah carried out yet another terror bombing strike against a U.S. target in Saudi Arabia, this time killing 19 American Air Force personnel and wounding nearly 500 others. And then, 5 years after that, came the September 11th attacks. Just 4 months after 9/11, US President Bush made his Axis of Evil speech, in which he lumped Iran, Saddam's Iraq, and North Korea all together.
I mean, what does this have to do with Iran? Like, that was like, who's that, like, Taliban, right? He was, Osama was from Saudi Arabia, as far as I remember. Like, what does Iran has to do with this?
As an axis of evil conspiring against America. Just a little more than a year after that speech, the United States used the pretext of Saddam possessing weapons of mass destruction to invade Iraq and completely toppled his regime in around a month. No weapons of mass destruction were ever uncovered, and the message sent to both Iran and North Korea was clear as day. It was either develop nuclear weapons or you would be next. North Korea managed.
What does weapons of mass destruction even mean? Just say nukes. Iraq has nukes. Why can't they just say that? I'm like, yeah. And this is like Dave Chappelle's skit. That's Chappelle's show skit. I still remember. Like, they have like weapons of mass destruction. Look at that. They have like what is it, like titanium tube? No, aluminum tube. They have aluminum tube, man. Okay, that was just like shady shit, right? When you look back, even now, that was complete shady shit. This is not equivalent today, right? Enough intelligence knows that Iran is obviously trying to enrich uranium and trying to make bomb. So this is not like, oh, they have weapons of mass destruction level shit. This is different.
Managed to successfully test an atomic bomb just 3 years after the American-led invasion of Iraq, while Iran hastily carried out their own nuclear weapons research as well. However, the United States made it clear that a nuclear-armed Iran would never be tolerated, and a combination of sanctions and diplomacy were used for years to try and convince Iran to stop. By 2015, the Obama administration had successfully negotiated the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, better known colloquially as the Iran nuclear deal. The treaty's terms are complex, but the TLDR is that the US agreed to end a sweeping series of sanctions they had previously placed upon Iran, while Iran agreed to give up their pursuit of nuclear research and allowed foreign inspections to routinely investigate them. Iran's and America's relationship.
See, the thing with this is people constantly like try to say bad things about Obama, but in this deal, I'm pretty sure all the places that were targeted just now, these were the places that people can go and check if there are bombs or not. People say you can just hide it. You can't hide radiation. If you go with the radiation detecting device and you found radiation, which means there was enrichment of uranium happening there. You can't hide that shit. Right? And you're like, okay, but what if they make a base that they didn't tell no one about? Okay, how do you know about them now? Do you have intelligence agency? As soon as they find out, they can just tell Iran, you know what, I want to check there. Iran can say no, and if they say no, they just backed out of the deal. That wasn't so hard. I don't know why Trump's backed out of that deal. I don't know what shit happened there. Somebody needs to make a detailed video about it, like why that all went down. Right? Because, like that deal was in place. People were called, outer parties were checking if there is any radiation there, if Iran is following the deal or not.
Relationship was beginning to show some signs of rapprochement. But then, things took another curveball. In 2016, Donald Trump was elected the new president of the United States on a platform that included a vow to fully withdraw the US from the Iran nuclear deal and to reinstate tougher economic sanctions.
Why?
In 2018, Trump carried through with these campaign promises, and Iran counter-threatened that they would continue on with their nuclear program and even close the Strait of Hormuz to international shipping if things.
Man, sanctions are there as a, as a punishment, so other party agrees to your term. That's why sanctions is there. Otherwise, sanction doesn't help you. Sanction doesn't help the country that you're putting on. Stopping business doesn't help either party. Sanctions are not good for anyone, but you have to do it as a weapon, right? Once they have made a deal with you, what's the point of removing the deal and implying sanction again? It's like a revenge mentality. That shit doesn't work at the governance level. This is why I'm stumped, like, why did Trump remove it? The deal was in place. You just had to, like, strengthen it. Like, okay, let's increase the checkups. Iran is under deal, like they can't back out. Otherwise, yeah, they are the one who backed out, not me. I don't get why US canceled that deal and increased the sanctions. That was like a near 10 years ago. So what if all the shit that is happening right now started because Trump backed down, right? I mean, obviously people can defend that shit, but it's just like words in the end. You can never know for sure, right? This is like one of those things like it will always be there. Like you'll never be sure if Trump backing out of the deal caused this shit or not. That's the fucked up part. Why would you do that?
Escalated any further, which would have completely crashed the global oil economy. Relations between the two were back to being tense, and then things got even worse the next year. In May and June of 2019, several merchant ships traveling through the Persian Gulf were damaged in two separate violent incidents. The West blamed Iran, and then Iran denied all involvement. In June, Iran shot down an American drone that was flying over the Strait of Hormuz, and tensions increased even further. And then in July, an Iranian oil tanker was seized by the UK as it was passing through the Strait of Gibraltar on the grounds that it was shipping oil to the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria, in direct violation of EU sanctions. Iran countered this by capturing a British oil tanker and taking its crew hostage as it was later passing through the
Okay, wait a minute. How does sanctions work? Like, if you put sanctions on someone, but Iran is not part of your sanctions. If Iran sells something to someone else, how can you stop Iran legally? You're the one who puts. If you put sanctions, Iran is not part of you. Iran didn't put any sanctions. This is like if like Russia was trying to sell oil barrels to India, and European countries suddenly like stops them in the middle. Like, we have sanctions on you. Yeah, you're not selling it. Russia and India has nothing to do with European sanctions, shit like that. I don't know, like, I'm getting confused here.
Persian Gulf. Both sides eventually released the other ships and crew, but it was clear that tensions were reaching a boiling point. And then they dramatically escalated near the end of the year. On the 27th of December 2019, a rocket artillery attack from some assailant on America's K-1 military base in Iraq left one U.S. civilian contractor dead and 4 other soldiers wounded. America blamed the attack on Hezbollah and other Shiite Islamist militias supported by Iran, though both Hezbollah and Iran denied all responsibility. At this point, there were about 5,000 U.S. troops who were stationed in Iraq who were helping in the ongoing fight against ISIL, and 2 days later, on the 29th, they decided to initiate a retaliatory strike against Hezbollah's weapons depots and command centers across both Iraq and Syria. These American airstrikes killed 25 Hezbollah-affiliated militiamen and wounded nearly 60 others. Escalating things even further a couple days after that, on December the 31st, Iran-backed militiamen stormed and attacked the United States Embassy in Baghdad. The embassy was heavily vandalized, but nobody on either side was killed, and the US blamed Iran once again for the provocation. And then came the 3rd of January 2020, when the already high tensions skyrocketed to levels never seen before. Qasem Soleimani, an Iranian major general widely believed to be the second most powerful figure within the Iranian regime, had just arrived in Baghdad on a flight. He was scheduled to meet with Iraq's prime minister later on in the day, but as he departed the Baghdad airport in a convoy of vehicles, a US drone that had been hovering nearby overhead fired a series of missiles that completely destroyed them. This missile strike had been personally authorized and ordered by President Donald Trump himself, and resulted in the deaths of Soleimani and 9 others. This event profoundly changed the crisis between Iran and the United States. It was the first time that America had assassinated a major military leader of a major foreign country since the plot to kill Isoroku Yamamoto of the Japanese.
It feels like this is Trump's fuck up. I mean, at least judging from this video, it feels like that. Trump is creating fire and trying to put it out. People make joke about that all the time, like, oh, Trump is the one who started the fire and now he's putting out. I'm like, oh, this is like funny thing. But this shit actually feels like that. Like he's doing a lot of aggressive thing where he could have been more diplomatic. He made a certain decision, of course, that was fucked up. And now this has intensified. And I'm not saying like you can't govern like that. There have been people like that. But let's not try to fight morality if you're going to do that shit, right? Let's get this straight. Iran trying to enrich uranium and trying to nuke people and quoting religion all the time. Iran is in wrong. Like, Iran can't have nukes. Otherwise, a lot of countries around the world is at risk just based on religion. Israel can exist. Next time they might come after Christian countries. based if your whole like country's whole diplomatic doctrine is based on religion, that's a scary thing, right? Who knows how you're going to rationalize something and nuke people? So Iran having nukes is kind of like a risky thing. So that's there, right? But at the same time, right, like Trump made a lot of fucked up decisions, just coming out of the Iran deal, literally assassinating somebody, fuck it, type of shit, right? So yeah, maybe shit that is intensified right now wouldn't have been if like Trump wasn't this aggressive and did certain thing. I don't know, or at least this is a story I'm feeling from this video. Comment down if there is more nuance to this. I don't know.
Japanese Imperial Navy back in 1943, who had been the mastermind of the Pearl Harbor attacks. 2 days later, Iran announced that it would no longer abide by any of the terms of the 2015 nuclear deal and demanded that Iraq remove all of the American presence from their country. And then, on the 8th of January, 5 days after Soleimani's death, Iran launched its own retaliatory strike against America. Codenamed Operation Martyr Soleimani, Iran initiated multiple ballistic missile strikes against 2 U.S. military bases within Iraq, and the entire world held its breath. This was the closest that America and Iran had ever come to full-scale war, and the crisis could have easily escalated into that. America had already rapidly deployed thousands of soldiers to the Persian Gulf from the US East Coast in the days between Soleimani's death and this Iranian artillery attack, but thankfully, nobody was killed by it. The bases experienced significant damage to buildings and infrastructure, but everybody present remained alive. And this was sort of a godsend because it gave both Iran and America the opportunity to de-escalate without losing any face. Iran got to look strong and powerful by firing rockets at American targets, and without any casualties, America was given the option not to retaliate, which is what they chose to do. Unfortunately, though, tragedy still managed to find a way to strike. While Iran likely designed the attack intentionally to not cause any American casualties, Iran didn't necessarily know that the US wasn't going to retaliate, and their anti-air batteries across the country were on high alert for any kind of response. One of these missile batteries detected what they believed to be an American cruise missile on their radar, and they opened fire on it with 2 surface-to-air missiles. It turned out that the target wasn't a cruise missile at all, but was just a regularly scheduled commercial airliner that had just taken off from Tehran International Airport mere minutes before. The plane in question was Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752, traveling from Tehran to Kiev with 176 people on board. The Iranian missiles
they destroyed their plane launching from their own airport. Come on, man.
Completely destroyed the plane and killed everybody on board, including 82 Iranian and 63 Canadian citizens. Initially, the Iranian government denied all responsibility and attempted to cover the disaster up by blaming the crash on technical faults with the plane itself. But after raising suspicion when they wouldn't allow any investigators access to the crash site, the government finally admitted to mistakenly shooting the plane down.
No, you can't say like, oh, nothing happened, and when people press, okay, fine, we shoot down, like, no, that's a big ass strike. From future, your statements are invalid because I'm not going to trust you. There should be a press release from like global, like America and other countries, Canada and all, Ukraine, all the people who were involved. Like anything you say, I'm not going to believe you now, right? You can't just like say shit and when you actually caught, okay, fine, we are caught. What do you mean fine? You lied.
A few days later, on January 11th. That attempted cover-up sparked massive protests across Iran and against the regime, and the brink of war against the United States had just narrowly been avoided. Hundreds of innocent people died as a result of the conflict between Iran and the United States in 2020. But of course, it could have always been far worse. Had the conflict escalated by any number of countless different ways, all-out war could have broken out that would have resulted in the deaths of many, many more. I only hope that peace between my country and Iran can be maintained in the future, but at the same time, I'm aware of how precarious this peace is and the history behind all.
Netanyahu says hello. Boo! Here comes ballistic missiles at Iran. Iran's like, what the fuck? I guess we are doing this now. US is like, no, god damn it, how to be involved now. And there we go. We are here now. GBU bombs, and there we go. I don't know what's happening literally now, but something's gonna happen.
of this. And I'm fearful that one day in the future, we might not get as relatively lucky as we did at the beginning.
Things like this always have one ending. That is the most cynical, nihilistic thing I can think about here, and that is probably more realistic than anything else. The problem with this will blow up one way or another. Bad things will happen. There is a scenario I can think of where America literally not invade, because in modern world, what is invade? But have to like go all in, decimate the government, decimate the current regime, and try to overthrow it the way they did it in the past. But not with a coup, with military and intelligence combined, where a lot of casualties does happen. And then in the end, another government rises up that is different, democratic or something, who the fuck knows? If not, then rinse and repeat. Thing is, this kind of shit has been happening for decades. It is still intensifying. It will intensify until some big things happen. That's the fucked up part. And I don't know if this current thing is just the last straw, where America literally launched B-2 bombers and attacked place. I don't know how Iran's going to completely respond. I don't know if Trump's going to let this shit go or just intensifying. We might be living in the time where Iran and US thing might, come to proper conclusion one way or another. And I think more realistic thing is going to be really fucked up. That's the thing, because nihilistic thing and cynical things is how usually world works. That's the fucked up part of it.
Of 2020. This video was originally released on
Yeah, well, go to original video page link from there, support this channel. This is a 4-year-old video, but yeah, it's a history video, so it doesn't matter, it still works. Judging from this video, yeah, West fucked up a lot. Usually that is how Middle East works. Britain fucking up properly and creating Middle East problem in the first place. America also following in footsteps, later on fucking up even more, creating enemies in Middle East that America constantly have to bomb from Syria, Iran, Iraq, Benghazi, and all that shit. Yeah, there is never one black and white side. Everybody's hand are dirty. You just have to see like whose hand is more dirty and more relevant in this current time. That's the thing you have to judge. Right, well, if you like my reason, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.